Well, you mentioned Giuliani, and Giuliani personally went after you at one point.
Yes.
And I guess he threatened to give you 100 years, which was twice the number of years that he gave your father.
That's correct.
Or try to give your father.
Correct. Well, no. Let me be clear. Giuliani never indicted my dad. My dad had already gotten 50 years early on. But what Giuliani told me is that if he convicted me on the case, he was going to give me double what my father got, 100 years.
Got it.
And I was acquitted in that case.
Okay. How much interaction did you personally have with Giuliani?
Not
outside
much.
Of that conversation.
It was just one conversation. It was very brief. And he didn't preside over the trial. He did come into the courtroom on occasion. But he had two of his assistants that prosecuted us. And so that was it. It was my only encounter.
Okay. And Giuliani really went after the Mafia hard in New York.
Yes.
And, we talked about how in Italy they would kill cops and, politicians and that type of thing, but that was frowned upon in America. But you said at one point you guys were actually considering killing Giuliani.
The conversation was brought up, yes, and it was brought up by Persico. And there were two people that normally you'd have hands off on that I knew there was conversations about taking them out. One was Giuliani, and the other was Geraldo Rivera. He just wasn't liked on the street. And, there was talk about taking him out at one point. Now, I told Geraldo this. He got scared when I told him too, but it was later on. But yeah, there was talk about taking Giuliani out.
I mean, Giuliani getting murdered by the Mafia would have really just unraveled the whole system. Everyone would have went to prison. Because it's interesting, I had a guy on my show recently named Brian Glaze Gibbs. He was a gangster from Brooklyn, but he ended up being like the enforcer for Fat Cat, who was the biggest, black drug dealer out there in Queens. One of the guys in Fat Cat's crew, a guy named by the name of Pappy Mason, he ordered the murder of a rookie cop named Edward Byrne. Do you remember this whole situation?
I remember hearing about that, yes.
Edward Byrne was a rookie cop who was stationed in Queens on a drug block because this Guyanese immigrant was always calling to complain about the drug dealers on his block. So
right.
They put a cop car in front of his house, and this guy, Pappy Mason, ordered the execution of this 22-year-old rookie cop. And that became the face of the war on drugs. There are some guys in Queens that are making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Pappy Mason and Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols.
Yeah.
Now, were they in the same crew together?
Cat was the man. Cat was the
Okay,
biggie.
so
Cat was the big.
Cat was the main guy,
Cat was
and
the-
Pappy
Yeah.
worked for him?
Yeah, Pappy had his own shit. Cat is a chess player.
In fact, when George H.W. Bush was running for president, he had the badge of Edward Byrne that he would bring up.
I remember
to his
that,
rallies.
yes.
So that's what happens in America when a cop gets executed. Now, Giuliani at the time, was he the mayor or just a prosecutor?
No, he was the U.S. attorney in Manhattan.
Okay. What would have happened if Giuliani was murdered?
All hell would have broke loose, and that's why, it was always hands off. You didn't go after law enforcement, you didn't go after politicians for that very reason, because we knew at that point in time the entire, strength of the federal government, for sure, the Justice Department, would have come down on us. And so we avoided it. Our thinking all the time, especially the old timers, we had to be as low-key and undercover as we possibly could. That's one of the reasons why there was some disdain for John Gotti, because John was out there so much and people criticized that. The old timers always believed we have to be as low-key. We don't even exist. We're as low-key as possible. And they tried to maintain that. And for a long time, it worked. It really worked, because we had so much power in this country for such a long time. But, we weren't exposed in a way that you might think. Yeah, they dragged us in front of grand juries and so on and so forth, but nothing really came of it. And when guys went to prison, they went to prison for a couple of years, came back out and started all over again. So, you know, when this new technology and these new laws that came out and guys, you know, kind of being, you know, out there, look, myself included. I mean, I had a lot of publicity too. It didn't help, doesn't help. You know, it only puts this bullseye on your back. So you don't want to ever go after law enforcement and bring the entire wrath of the Justice Department down on you and every police force that, you know, locally is watching you too. So, you know, it was a good policy. Just beat them in court, stay low key, and take care of our own. If we have an informant, we'll take care of that guy because he's one of ours. But you leave law enforcement alone.